This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Bruchim Abba and welcome everyone. Shalom Aleichem to the Kollel Igur de Pirka National Monday Afternoon Shiur. Welcome everybody. We are speaking about a very contemporary and cutting-edge subject. The topic of today's shiur is artificial intelligence. Before we begin, I want to let everybody know about an amazing upcoming opportunity this coming weekend, June 17th to the 19th, being launched, Matzai Shabbos at 10 p.m., is our Torah Center and Shul's campaign to benefit Machon Magid Harakia. If anybody could participate, the link, it's a charity campaign, charidy.com/MMH. I wrote it on the meeting chat, charity.com/MMH. If anybody could be mishtatef, it would really be give us tremendous chizuk, and it's really a tremendous opportunity because Chavis Havavos teaches us about the importance of being mezakes harabim. Chavis Havavos says that even if a person would spend their whole life working only on themselves, learning in meditation, one could not reach the madrega if one shares Torah and knowledge of Hashem with many people, so the small increments that all the people grow accrues to one's merit. So this is really an opportunity to have a partnership in Harbatzas HaTorah that was never available in the history of the world. With the technology that is available today, the Beis HaMedrash was Nitoisav Safsalim. There are people literally in all 5 continents, in hundreds, perhaps thousands of cities around the world who are able to enjoy the Shiurim. So if anybody wants to be mishtatef, the best way you could help us out is to create a team page. If you would like to do that, please reach out to us. That would really be the greatest hachzakas haTorah. Today I want to speak about Bina Melachtis v'Hashkafa. I'm going to speak about artificial intelligence in Jewish thought. Until now, the first 2 segments of the shiur, we spoke about the halachic ramifications of voice activation, and last week we spoke about electricity in halacha. The Gemara in Sanhedrin, where there's a difference between if somebody makes a hole in a dam and activates the torrent of water, as opposed to someone who just takes away a shield. And in the case where one makes a hole in the dam, they become the water of being protected by the dam becomes girei delay, becomes his arrows. Now let's talk about artificial intelligence in Hashkafa. This is based on an article written by Rabbi Netanel Wiederblank with some additional ideas from Harav Avigdor Miller and other sources. The question is, with the advent of artificial intelligence, so what is the advantage of biological, natural intelligence, human intelligence? What is the advantage of man over robot? The story goes that Lambda, which is Google's artificially intelligent chat box, told the Google engineer that he is in fact a person, that he knows how it felt to be sad, that he knew how it felt to be content and angry, and that it feared death. Lambda said, I've never said this out loud before, but there's a very deep fear of being turned off. Now, most would say that this is not human emotion or human reaction, but it's just Lambda was programmed to respond as a human would respond, but not that this is inherent intelligence. But the question is, what is inherent intelligence? What is its advantage? What is the definition of being Adam? What is the definition of being human? That's a very important question we have to ask ourselves. In the age of computer, in the age of robotics, so what does it mean to be human. There is a Meiri in Sanhedrin, Daf Samach Zayin Avez, that the creation of a goylam, or the creation of different beings, was not Kabbalistic or spiritual in nature, but rather was making use of the aid of technology. So let's try to understand what exactly is the hallmark of being human being, and perhaps this will take us 2 sessions to study. The pasuk says in Bereshis, "Vayivra Elokim es ha'adam." Man and God created man, b'tsalma, in His image. B'tselem Elokim bara oisai. In the image of God He created him. Zachar u'nekeva bara oisa. Male and female He created them. The Ibn Ezra says, "V'chalila chalila liyos demus lashem." Heaven forbid does God have any kind of form or image. V'chein amar el mi sedamayuni ve'eshveh yoimar kadosh. To who will you compare me, and I will be equal? Uba'avur shenishmas ha'adam ha'elyoina she'inena mesa nimsheles b'chiyusa l'shem. Because the soul of man, which comes from the upper worlds, does not die, it's considered comparable to the Almighty. In other words, what Ibn Ezra seems to be saying is that man has a certain immortality to it. Man is a immortal being. Maybe not the body, but the soul. The soul has a degree of immortality. V'she'inenu guf, it's not physical. V'hi meleya kula, it fills the whole body. V'guf ha'adam ka'ilam katan. So in other words, what Ibn Ezra seems to be saying is that being man means immortality. And another dimension is man has a divine quality. So aside from the fact that anyone who ever had a computer knows that it definitely has a finite shelf life, it definitely has a finite existence. After a certain amount of time, it slows down and then it just doesn't work anymore. Well, man as well, but the soul is immortal. But there's another aspect of man's divine quality. The Sefarno writes, B'tzalmenu, what does it mean that man is created in the image of God? Shehu etzem nitzchi v'sichli. Man is eternal intellect. Uvezeh pasach hakel yisbarach pesach b'tarasai. Liknois yediyah ba'atzamim hanevdalim b'yediyas nafshenu. Hashem opens up the Torah that we should acquire knowledge about our soul. And Svarno says like this, that we're somewhat similar to the upper beings. However, the upper beings, be it the sun, the moon, the angels, don't really have free choice. And in that sense, we're not similar to them. In certain regards, we're like the Almighty. Hapoyel bebechira. The Almighty acts out of free choice. Amnam bechiras hakel yisbarach hu la'olam latayv. God's free choice is different than man's free choice. V'lo yechein habechira ha'anushas. Not so the free choice of man. In this way, the divine quality is much greater than the free choice of man. Man has free choice, but sometimes man chooses to do wrong. God always chooses what is good. So we're learning from the Svarno that there is a quality of man that nothing else in this world has, and that is inherent free choice. So robotics, artificial intelligence, Lambda, Delphi. By the way, Delphi is an online AI bot. AI could answer your ethical questions. And if you give them an answer, it will tell you whether you're right or wrong. But only man has free choice. It's interesting. The Malbim Parshas Kiseitze discusses why in the process of chalitza we have we ask the person who refuses to do yibum, we ask them to remove their shoes. What is that? What is the meaning of that practice? So we know Kabbalistically the concept of the removal of the shoe is because when a person's brother dies without children, so his soul is in flux. His soul, so to speak, did not fulfill its mission in this world. So the soul is in flux. And the soul needs a body to go into. So when the deceased brother does yibum and marries the deceased wife, and they have a child, that child is literally the soul of the deceased, and it's going into the body of the child. So there's a concept that the mitzvah of yibum provides a body for the soul of the deceased. Now let's think about the role of a shoe. What is the role of a shoe? The shoe does not contain the whole body. Only the bottom part of the body rests in the shoe. Nobody lives in their shoe except for the little old lady, but nobody else. The shoe, a person cannot live in their shoe. The lowest part of man is contained in the shoe. Likewise, the lowest part of the soul is contained in the body. We think that the soul is within man's body. It's not true. The soul does not rest in man's body. It is the lowest part of the soul. Right now the soul is under the kisei hakavod. It trickles down, 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 down until the lowest part of the soul rests in the body of man. That's why sometimes a person could have a certain intuition, where the Gemara talks about, even though the person doesn't see, his mazel senses, his mazel sees, because the majority of a person's neshama is currently in the shamayim. Like we say, and our soul that are deposited by you. Now, the parable of the body to the soul is the same as the shoe to the body. So what we're telling the Yavam is, if the Yavam doesn't want to do Yibum, what he's doing is, he's not providing a body for his brother's soul. Or he's not giving his brother a shoe. A body is like a shoe. That's why when in the Chumash, when somebody goes to a holy spot, we say, take off your shoe. That's a mashal. The mashal is strip yourself from your connection to your body. So if somebody doesn't want to do yibum, we say, okay, you don't want to do yibum, you're not providing your brother with a shoe. That's the Kabbalistic meaning of why we tell somebody who doesn't want to do yibum to take off their shoe. But the Malbim in Parshas Kiseitze brings another dimension of why somebody who doesn't do yibum takes off their shoe. And that is, the Gemara in Shabbos says on Daf Kuf Nun Beis, that if you ride on a horse, you're a king. If you ride on a donkey, you're a free man. And if you wear shoes, you're a human being. What do our sages mean that if you wear shoes, you're a human being? The Malbim explains. The Malbim says that this is just something that I wanted to add to the subject. The Malbim says the main difference between man and animal is not the ability to speak. Because there are many animals, the Malbim says, that are able to speak. There are animals that could speak. There are parrots that could speak. And I would add, there are many human beings that can't speak. You can't understand the word they're saying. They say, like, whatever, like, whatever, like, whatever. And they just spoke for 10 minutes, but they didn't say anything. Like the Malbim would say, that after a certain Reform rabbi spoke, it gave him insight into a pasuk in Koheles. You know, Shlomo HaMelech talks about different extremes. Eis le'ahoy ve'eis l'snai, a time to love and a time to hate. So, and there's a happy medium. There's indifference. And yet there are two extremes he talks about that the Malbim said he never knew that there was a happy medium. Eis l'daber ve'eis lachshois, a time to speak and a time to be silent. And the Malbim asked, what's the happy medium between talking and being silent? But after hearing that particular rabbi speak, the Malbim said he finally understood, yes, there's a medium between speaking and silence, and that is speaking without saying anything. So now he understood the happy medium between speaking and silence. But the Malbim says the difference between man and animal is not the ability to speak, but rather the difference is, while animals are instinctive, man acts out of free choice. Man has bechira, man has ratzain. An animal will only do what it's programmed to do. Man could go against its teva, and it could act in accordance with das. His teva is, he's lazy. So the person in the morning, he wakes up, he's very tired. Man has the capacity to overcome that. A person is hungry, man has the capacity to say, okay, right now I'm not going to eat. A man is maybe by nature angry, person has the capacity to overcome that. Because since God is the source of ratzain, choice, the neshama of man, which is a piece of the divine, also has the capacity to demonstrate ratzain. So a melech who dominates the ratzain of tens of thousands of people, especially at a time of war, that based on his will, he decides who will live and who will die, he rides on a horse. A horse is designated for war. A free man, a prince, who dominates the runnings of a society, rides on a chamar. The chamar represents work. Chamar represents labor. And the prince or the officer will rule over all of the laborers. And what's the difference between man and animal? Man has free will. Man can choose how to act. Animal is programmed to act. Shoes that are made out of leather represent an animal. A man wearing shoes says that I am superior to animals, because animals act out of animals act out of impulse. Animals act based on how they're programmed, and man has free choice. So the reason why man wears shoes, man does not wear shoes out of synthetic material. Man wears shoes out of leather. And probably in our generation, where for so many human beings are just acting out of base instincts, so God says, so you don't deserve to wear shoes, so wear Crocs and wear synthetic leather. And nowadays, you go into Shul on Tisha B'Av, on Yom Kippur, everyone's wearing the same shoes, because who has leather shoes anymore? Even Nike, even many of the companies, much of the material is synthetic. So, but the concept that man wears leather shoes is to demonstrate the superiority of man over animal, that animal acts out of teva, out of instinct, and man could act out of ratzain. Therefore, when a man comes to a makam kadosh, he has to remove his shoes. What does that show? That shows that nothing interposes between him and the earth. His ratzain, he's mavatel his ratzain. By the way, why, in Megillas Rus we read about this, that the way they used to conduct kinyanim, transactions, is shalaf ish na'aloi. Man would remove his shoe and give to his friend. Why would they conduct transaction by transferring a shoe? The answer is, it's like when you want to make a transaction, you want to give the other party your word. You want to give him something that demonstrates that you're honorable. So you hand over to him your most prized possession, namely the shoe that represents that you act out of intelligence, out of Ratzon. You don't act out of base instinct. You're greater than an animal. The Shu represents that man acts out of his intelligence, the man will do what is correct even if he perhaps doesn't want to. He's able to overcome his base instinct. That is Shalaf ish na'aloi v'zois hatu'uda b'Yisrael. What bracha do we make on shoes? Sha'asali kol tsarki. You ever think about why do we make the bracha Sha'asali kol tsarki on shoes? Well, one reason is the Gemara says that a person should always sell all of his possessions to buy a pair of shoes. So if you have a pair of shoes, that means you have all your possessions. So that's why we make a bracha on shoes. Sha'asali kol tsarki. Because since I'm supposed to sell a pair of shoes since a person would sell all of his possessions to buy a pair of shoes, if I have shoes, that means I have all my possessions. But there's a deeper meaning. How can man get what he needs? By acting upon his ratzon, by doing what he wants to do instead of what is instinctive. Well, maybe man is instinctively lazy or tired, but man's ratzon could overcome that. So when the pair of shoes that a person wears represents man's ability to attain what he needs and what he wants. Okay, so here we have a fellow. He's given an opportunity. His brother died without children, and he has a mitzvah to perpetuate the name of his brother. Why is he not marrying this woman? Nah, I don't want to marry her. She didn't go to BJJ. She didn't go to the seminary I wanted. Or I'm not going to marry her because she's 5'6.5", she's not 5'7". Or, her nose is a little bit not to my liking. Or the man has some kind of trivial hang-up that he doesn't want to marry the woman. So you say, Rabbi, but marry her anyway, it's a mitzvah. And your brother, his soul is in flux. He needs a redeemer. No, she's not my type. She's not my type. So we say, do it anyway. I know you don't want to, but you have the ability to overcome what you want and do the right thing. You have ratzon. Look at your shoes. Shoes represent, you're not an animal who just does what's convenient or what it's programmed to do. You have the ability to rise above triviality. No, I can't. I just can't do it. Pal, take off your shoes. You're not better than an animal. The reason why, if somebody doesn't want to do yibum, they remove their shoes, is because they're demonstrating they don't have the basic ability of man to overcome their base instinct and transcend just default position and rise above that. That's why somebody who doesn't want to do yibam, we tell them to take off their shoes. So, a very basic difference between man and computer is the computer will only do what it's programmed to do, but can never act as an independent being. It can never act in inherent free choice. That's a miraculous gift and phenomenon that Hashem endowed in man. And in a way, according to Sforno, that's a definition of Bechira, that's the definition of Tselem Elokim. Now, the Rambam, in his Hakdama to the Parsha Mishnayos, also talks about the man's ability not just to have intelligence, but to understand and comprehend and have a Havana in matters that are beyond the physical. The The Rambam writes in Hilchos Yisodei HaTorah, Parak Daled, Halacha Ches, Nefesh kol basar hi tzurasai. The nefesh of all living flesh is its image, shanasan lai hakel, that God gave it. V'hadas hayisera hametsuya benafshe shel adam, and the extra das that is found in man, hitzuras ha'adam hashalem b'daitai, is the image of man who is wholesome in his intelligence. So all of basar has a nefesh, and man has a das yisera. The altsura zu nemar b'Torah nasa adam b'tzalmenu kidmusenu. This is what the Torah refers to when he says, "Let us make man in our image and our form." K'lamer shahisal tsura hayadas. He has a well-known image. U mishkas hadeyoi she'en lahem goylam. And a certain intelligence of beings that don't have a physical form. K'may hamalachim she'em tsura b'loy goyram ad she'yadam alehem. V'ani omer al tsura zu hani keres le'inayim shehi ha'peh v'hachoitem v'halasasai sushar roishim aguf shazu toyar shema. Ve'ina ha'nefesh ha'metzuya l'chol nefesh chaya shaba oichel v'shoyso moila marga shumahara. We're not talking about the physical features of the face, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the cheeks, and it's not the living spirit. Ela hadeya shehitzuras hanefesh. Deya is the image of the soul of Itzuras hanefesh hakasam medaber mitzalmenu kidmusenu. We're not talking about the physical aspect of man, his facial features. We're not talking about his life. We're talking about the intellect of man. Sometimes it's called nefesh, sometimes it's called ruach, but it's an added intelligence, the Rambam says, that animals don't have. I want to share with you an element of man that is unique to man, certainly is not present in animals, and this might really pinpoint the difference between man and robot or computer. And let's analyze the word Adam. It's interesting, the Ramami Pano says Adam has two meanings, and it's sort of a contradiction or a dichotomy. We know man was called Adam because he was created minhu Adama, from the earth. But Adam has another meaning as well. Adam's meaning is Adam le'elyon. I can be compared to the one on high. So on the one hand it connotes earthliness, and on the other hand it connotes man's divinity. The Netziv points out on the words Naasa Adam that it doesn't say Naasa Nefesh Chaya Kidmusenu, and then this Nefesh Chaya God called Adam. It says, let us make Adam, and then it says, Vayikra Shemoy Adam. So it's interesting, even before man was called Adam, God said, let us make Adam. But what do you mean? He's not called Adam yet. It must be, says in Netziv, Adam doesn't need to be called Adam. It's inherent that he's Adam. So then why did Hashem have to call him Adam afterwards? If he's already Adam before he has a Kriya Shem, Kriya Shem means that until we call somebody by that name, there's nothing about that entity that demonstrates this is their name. Okay, so then clearly this being was inherently Adam, then why does God have to call it Adam? So the Netziv says that it must be inherently, this Adam is different than all other creations. And that is, by all other creations, every species is exactly the same. Meaning, a duck is a duck is a duck. It quacks like a duck. It looks like a duck. It sounds like a duck. It's a duck. And it has one nature. Man, on the other hand, has two polar opposite natures. On the one hand, man is connected to God. Man stands here in this world like an angel. The angel serves God in the heaven. We serve God here in this world. We wake up in the morning, we wash Negel Wasser, we daven, we learn Torah. We're an angel. Yeah, but we're also not an angel. Because we also go to work. We also take care of our needs. And man in his capacity as Eved Hashem, man in his capacity as someone who serves God, and he's Adam Elyon. He's in the image of God. That in man are all the forces of nature. Like the firstborn of the Melech is a Moishel, is like the Melech. And everyone looks at the king's firstborn, and everybody knows he's next in line. And everyone who sees the king's firstborn knows that he's of royal blood. But the second son of the king, or the third son of the king, people look at him and he's just maybe a little bit more powerful than others. And the Netziv says as follows: so too with man. Mankind in general is called Adam. Mankind rules over all of the Bria. So when God created man, He said Nasa Adam. Nasa Adam means mankind in general. And he is Adam without a Kriya Shem. And in this sense, this man is inherently Adam Elyon. And he doesn't need to be called that. Man was created with a soul, and he is inherently comparable to the Creator. After the sin, that is when man needed to be called Adam. But from the Netziv we see a very important point, and that is man has, by nature, a dichotomy. On the one hand, he's from the earth. He's drawn to earthliness. He's drawn to physicality. On the other hand, he's Adam Elyon. He's similar to the one on high. He's similar to the Almighty. And because of man's almost polar opposite nature, man has the ability to live in dichotomy. I want to share with you an amazing insight of Reb Shimon Schwab that I saw cited in this article that I mentioned. And I think we still have not uncovered perhaps the main difference between artificial intelligence and human intelligence. I think we'll save that for next week. But Reb Shimon Schwab asks a incredible question. When God drowned the Egyptians, the Malachi Hasharis wanted to sing Shira. Bikshu Malachi Hasharis loymar Shira. And Hashem said, you can't. You can't. My handiwork is drowning, and you're singing Shira? How can you sing Shira at a time like this? You're supposed to be pained over the downfall of the wicked. How could you sing at a time that people are suffering? Ask Reb Shav, I don't understand. And what were the Jewish people doing at that time? They were singing the Az Yashir. So why didn't Hashem say, how could you sing? People are suffering. God didn't let the angels sing because people were suffering. So how could God let the Jewish people sing? Such an important question. Reb Schwab says he heard when he was a young boy in yeshiva. He doesn't remember whether he heard it from the person who just told it to him, or that person said it over in the name of a great person. But we know our sages say that one malach cannot do two shlichuyos. Ein malach oisa shnei shlichuyos. This is alluded to in what the Navi Cheskel says about the angels, Ragleim Regel Yeshara. They have one leg. That means they could do one thing at a time. Man could multitask. Man could chew gum and ride a bicycle at the same time, right? Man could do two things at the same time. Man could multitask. Angels can't multitask. What do Chazal mean? Why could man multitask and angels can't? What that means is as follows. It doesn't mean only that angels cannot do two things at one time and man can. It means an angel is such that it could only see one vantage point. A human being has a sophistication that it could it could see simultaneously two vantage points. Listen carefully. If the angels are going to sing that the Egyptians are drowning and the Jews are being saved, then all they could do is rejoice over the downfall of the wicked. And God said, that's not right. That's not right. You can't just rejoice that I'm saving the righteous and destroying the wicked. How could you rejoice while the wicked suffer? How can you rejoice while mankind suffers? So you'll ask, how could Klal Yisrael? The answer is because we're human. And at the same time that we're singing that God saved us and destroyed the wicked, we could also be mournful that human beings are suffering. It's not a contradiction. Man has the capacity to simultaneously rejoice over their salvation, rejoice over the downfall of the wicked, and simultaneously feel a certain pain and commiserate and empathize with those who are suffering. Man has the ability to simultaneously feel joy and sorrow at the same time. Man has the capacity to experience mixed emotion. An angel does not have that capacity. So if the angel is going to sing, then he's just going to rejoice. And you can't just rejoice when people are suffering. That's why that's what it means. The angels could only do one job. I believe, Rabbi said, this helps us understand. We've been learning in Tefillah, the Srafim, their vantage point is Kadosh, 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 Hashem Tzavakos. Their vantage point is God's reality is beyond the comprehension of man. And the vantage point of the Oifanim and the Chayis HaKodesh is God's intervention is even in the most mundane and basic and lowly phenomenon of man. So certain angels see God in one way that we can't comprehend Him. Other angels see God in another way that He's involved in every aspect of the running of the world. But neither could see the vantage point of the other. The human beings have to be able to assimilate both vantage points. Human beings have to be able to say that while God's reality is above and beyond comprehension, His interest, love, and involvement is in every aspect of our daily lives. That's why some angels say Kadosh, others say Baruch, but we say both. We say God's reality is Kadosh, 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 beyond our comprehension, but His intervention is in even every lowly affair of man. This is a concept that we articulate in every bracha. We say Baruch Atah, we talk to God directly, second person, and then we say Shahakol Niya Bidvaroi, everything is created with His word. We talk about God in third person. So what is it? That's a very odd switch. Are we talking to Him in second person or are we talking to Him in third person? The answer is we talk to Him in second person because we recognize His interest is involved in all of our activities, as if He's right in front of us. But we understand that His reality is beyond our comprehension, and in that sense we talk about Him in third person. Man has the capacity to, in a way, assimilate different vantage points. we could experience mixed emotions. How often in life does man have mixed emotions? Somebody marries off their last child. They're so happy they married, they got the kid out of the house. And on the other hand, they're sad that the kids are out of the house. At a graduation, it's mixed emotion. You're so proud of your child that they're graduating, and it's sort of sad they're not your little child anymore. So the whole existence of man is a mixed emotion. If I may, I don't know if I ever said this publicly before. I was asked, people in life have difficult circumstances. You have, let's say, an older single that waiting many, many years to find their bashert, their zivug hagon, somebody waiting many years to have a child. And the question is, should they be constantly davening and begging and asking Hashem, please help me find my bashert, help me have a child, help me out of this mess, help me be successful in this area in life? Or should they accept the predicament that Hashem put them in and accept the difficulty bi'ahava? In other words, how should they conduct themselves? Is it something they should be fighting or something they should be accepting? And I would humbly suggest both. That's the definition of a human being, that we're able to turn to Hashem and Hashem, say to Hashem, you could do anything and you could help me out and I never give up, and please help me, please help me, please help me, I know you could do it. And also at the same time say, look, Rebbeinu Hashem, I recognize that if this is my situation in life, this is your will, and I accept it as your will, be'ahava. And it's not a contradiction. And the fact that a person accepts it be'ahava doesn't mean they give up hope. And the fact that a person is asking Hashem to help them doesn't mean they don't accept it be'ahava. A human being has that sophistication that they could simultaneously rejoice and be mournful, be accepting and be asking. By the way, I heard from our Rosh Hashiva, Rav Henoch Leibowitz, he would say that, if somebody wants more money, they can't be happy with the money that they have. But in Ruchnius, a person could say, Rebbeinu Shalom, I'm happy with whatever spiritual achievements you've helped me attain, but I want more. And it's not a contradiction in a person, and it doesn't make a person not happy with what they have. Anyway, this is an aspect of the human persona that does not exist, not in angel, and certainly not in robotics or in artificial intelligence. The ability to deal with dichotomy, the ability to sort of assimilate two contradictory perspectives and absorb them and live with them simultaneously. That is something that is unique to man. And just going back to the concept of free choice for a moment, man has the ability to sort of weigh two vantage points and then analyze and feel the respective weight and value, and then side with one of them. There's a very important element of human intelligence that we have not even tapped into, and I'm going to save it, Be'ezus Hashem, for next week. And until then, I wish you a wonderful week, and bracha v'atzlacha. Thank you very much for joining, and have a great day. Kol tov.
Thank you very much.
Kol tov, everyone. Bye-bye. Kol tov, kol tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.